we're trying to do is to have a community conversation and let people understand what the challenge is, and I really appreciate you coming. Let me maybe address one thing. A lot of you have heard and read where the state's going to have a surplus this year. For the first time, you think, okay, well, I hear the state's having a surplus, but then I see you're $6 billion short on projects. What's the deal? Well, think about the state. We have a general fund budget that we basically fund with the sales tax you pay and then the franchise and excise tax that businesses pay. It comes from a lot of places, but that's the two big chunks. And that funds the general fund of the state government, which does everything from fund schools to runs prisons to help with mental health issues, all the different things the state does. Then we fund our transportation network basically off the gas and diesel tax that's paid primarily by users. Okay? We have historically kept that separate, and I think that's a good thing, so that when you go pay that user tax in gas, you know where it's going from and you know it's going to. And then with the general fund, if we happen to have a really good year, we don't kid ourselves into thinking, well, like we're in great condition. We have a surplus this year. Last year, Senator McNally chairs the Finance Committee, we had a shortfall. And so we were scrambling like mad to try to make things work there at the end of session to try to come up with an adjusted budget. And we did that. We had to make some hard cuts, but we did it. But those of you who run business, the state's no different. We have good times and bad times, and the goal is to try to level those out and live with those. So we do have a general fund surplus this year, and a lot of people are saying, well, let's just take that surplus and use that to fund roads. It sounds like problem solved. A couple of problems. First of all, our surplus won't be $6 billion, number one. Number two, there's a lot of other needs raising their hands for that money as well. We have some serious deferred maintenance issues with some of our state-owned buildings. We have some education needs we want to make sure we address. And so it's always interesting when you have a surplus. It gets spent about 5 times before you ever get to it with all the different ideas that people have for how you should spend the extra money. So I wanted to address that piece. The other thing is, a lot of people said, well, let's just take some of that and we'll use it to fund, to address the issue. Just one project, just the Alcoa Highway project, I'll give something around here that people are familiar with. But just that one project is $270 million, okay? That one project. And it puts it into context how big the challenge is for us. So here's, I've said this a couple times before, but as governor, I feel like it's really important to leave things better than you found them. It's just kind of a basic principle. And in Tennessee, we have inherited a road system that is among the best in the nation. As Commissioner Shore said, we're in the top 3. We've also inherited a road system with no debt. And that's a really, really good thing. I mean, it's like our parents and grandparents paid their fair share so that we don't have any debt. We have some states that literally pay more in interest on their road debt than we spend on roads. Okay, I think New Jersey pays more in interest on their road debt than we spend on to maintain and build roads. Okay, so we've inherited a great system. We need to pass along. As governor, I feel committed to do this. To be honest with you, some people said, well, how did we get in this position? How did we get to where we have a $6 billion backlog? Well, I'll tell you how it happens as a governor. Your first term, you come in as governor and you have all these things you want to do. These things you think are really important, and you go attack them and work on them and do that. In the middle of that, somebody says, we got a road system where we're starting to, our needs are bigger than what's coming in to pay for that. We need to do something to address it. And as governor, you kind of say, that kind of sounds like a second term problem. And so you push it off. And then you get to your second term, and somebody like Paul says, oh, by the way, every new road project takes about 8 to 10 years to happen. You go, 8 to 10 years? Somebody else is going to be cutting all those ribbons. I think I'll let them worry about it. Get beat up to try to do something about it. And so you push it down the road. But like I said, I'm committed to passing on something in at least as good, if not better condition than we found it. I've used this analogy several times, but we take a lot of pride in being a conservative state in Tennessee, and we should. Okay, like I said, this road system's a great example of that. We want to pass on something to people, though, that is just like we found it. It's not conservative at all. Let's just say there's a family farm that your grandparents, your great-grandparents built. They passed it to your grandparents, they passed it to your parents, and they've given it to you. And you say, I'm going to pass it on to my kids too, and I'm going to make sure we don't have any debt on it. that way my kids can have this debt-free. But when you pass it on to them, the pond won't hold water, the barn leaks when it rains, the HVAC system in the house doesn't work, and there's holes in all the fences. You're not really passing them on a debt-free farm. But they've got debts, they just, they're physical and real obligations out there instead of something you owe to the bank. And I think that's what we're trying to say is, we need to pass on to our kids and grandkids the same kind of system that we got. One that's paid for, one that works, and one where some later generation doesn't say, all right, that $6 billion hole is now a $9 billion hole, how are we going to climb out of it? So, like I said, we're not here with a specific solution. We're here to talk about what we think the challenge is. At some point in time, we will decide what we will propose, if anything, this year. But our main purpose is just to, like I said, to raise the level of awareness and to begin the conversation. So, thank you all very much for joining us. I do see